Hello, my name is Peter Feza with Conquer Any Fear, and today I'm going to teach you how you can turn your fear of public speaking into a confident mecca of public speaking. I'm going to share with you the 3 tips that brought me from literally experiencing panic attacks on stage, not pretty, to feeling my power on stage, to not only feeling good in front of people, but feeling my absolute best. How I turned my liability into my asset, and it comes down to 3 really important things that I did consistently, and I'm going to share with you. But first, I'm going to tell you my story. So I went from going on stage, I wanted to be a public speaker. But every single time I went up in front of people, and I don't know if you felt this too, I started feeling panicky. As soon as somebody was about to call on me, my heart would start to race, and I would start to get this knot right in my throat, and my hands would start to shake a little bit. I went to a Toastmaster meeting because I wanted to learn how to speak, and they called on me, and I stood up, and I started feeling all these reactions, and I started talking, and I stopped right in the middle of my speech because I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And people were looking at me, and they were doing one of these. It was super embarrassing. I felt super ashamed for it, and I didn't know what to do. And I turned that into feeling confident with these 3 things. Now, the first thing is something that you've probably heard a little bit about before, but I'm going to tell you how I did it and the difference that's going to make the difference between how you've done this before and how you'll do it in the future. Visualization. So every single morning I sat down to visualize a minimum of 5 to 10 minutes. And I would sit down, and this is what I would recommend that you do. You picture in your mind all of the things that you're going to do while you're speaking. You're going to experience the details, the feeling that your feet feel on the ground, the feeling of your clothes, where you're going to be, the environment, right? And so when you're feeling these things, you fill it out with so much incredible detail, what you're going to be hearing, what you're going to be smelling. And this tricks the brain into thinking that it's actually happening. And when your brain is tricked to thinking that it's actually happening, and when you're doing the speech and you're successful at it, you're looking at people in the audience and they're looking back at you, you're experiencing the entire experience in your brain. What this does is it creates a reference for your brain. And your brain's like, oh yeah, we've done this before, right? It locates that file in your brain that says, yeah, we've done it before. So when you actually did it, your physiology, your muscles, everything is going to be triggered to do the same exact thing. The important thing that I would like to suggest when you actually do these visualizations that I was doing that made all the difference is I would actually visualize what I would be doing that day before I actually drove to my speech. So I was envisioning my speech, but I was envisioning myself getting ready and getting prepared for the speech. I was envisioning myself combing my hair. I was envisioning myself holding my hands on the steering wheel as I'm driving to this place. That way, the day that you're about to make that speech, you are going through the same processes, and it's kind of like a win builds on a win builds on a win, and you're like, wow, this is actually happening. So it cements success in your brain. The second thing that I did is one of the most important techniques that you can use when it comes to attaining any specific goal, but especially when it comes to public speaking. It's this technique that I call seeding. Now, what seeding is kind of like if visualization was the pictures and the images on the screen of your mind. The seeding is like the soundtrack. And what do I mean by the soundtrack? It's the feeling that you feel when you've actually done the speech and it's a success. It's not like, man, this is how this is going to be. This is how it went. Here, let me explain. So it's the feeling that you get if you were to imagine that it went well, right? It's like that feeling that you'd be getting immediately afterwards that it was a huge success. What I did is I would be walking down the street and I'd be like, yes, everything went well, man, my speech was awesome. I feel like all of these success feelings in my body. It's like everything went well, and I feel that certainty in my physiology. The third and final technique that I'd like to teach you today is the most powerful out of all 3. If I was going to say if there was to be one that was going to trump the rest of them, no pun intended or reference, if there's going to be one that was going to be the most powerful, I would say this is the one. It's an incantation. And what an incantation is, if you don't understand what that means, it's like an affirmation on steroids. It's essentially saying a phrase, mantra, or statement like, I am confident, I am brave, I'm courageous, but you say it with all the emotional intensity that your body can muster. You say it with such emotional force and certainty. It's like you embody the word. Every single morning when I was getting up preparing for my speeches, and I still do it to this day, every single morning I get up, I turn on my radio, and I'm like, man, I'm about to do some incantations, and I don't feel good about doing it. And then when I start doing it, I'm like, I'm confident. I'm a leader. I'm confident. I start getting my hands into the leader. I'm confident. I'm a leader. I'm confident. I'm a leader. And I'm going around and I'm feeling it in my body. Now here's a bonus. Here's a little extra credit, if you will. When I'm feeling it, I'm feeling with all this emotional certainty. I'm not just saying I'm confident, I'm feeling it, right? And this is what I do right before I go on stage. This is what I do the morning of. So I'm feeling it in my physiology. Now, when I'm doing these incantations in the morning or right before I go on stage, I do something very specific. When I'm at the peak emotional state, I anchor that state in my nervous system, in my brain, by doing a physical movement that's unique to that incantation. So when I'm like, I'm confident and I'm just in that emotional certainty, I'll smack my chest. Or I'll go like this, I'll do that specific move. And I only do it when I feel that emotional certainty. So when I'm about to go on stage, and when I was about to go on stage when I first started learning this technique, I would do that move and it would bring out those emotions. This is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. This is a really simple tool and technique in order for you to speak powerfully on stage right before you're about to do something courageous. I used this when I was about to go bungee jumping. This last month, I was just incanting and I was doing my moves and I felt certain. I felt the courage. It gave me that little extra juice. If you were to just do anything, if you were just to do these 3 techniques for your public speaking, in addition to preparing for the speech, that's huge, then you're going to be shifting yourself from a place of fear into a place of confidence, into a place of uncertainty, into a place of total certainty. I would recommend doing each of these techniques about 5 minutes per day. When you do that, you're going to be building up these confidence stores. Kind of like putting food in a pantry. You're building up the food in the pantry so in the wintertime, you can eat the food in the pantry. These are my 3 tips for turning fear into absolute confidence when you're speaking on stage. My name is Peter Feza, reminding you to conquer any of your fears and make your dreams happen now. If you just saw that video and you liked what you saw and you want to get those videos every single week before anybody else, go to my website at conqueranyfear.com. I'm going to give you free tips, tools, and strategies on how to conquer your fear. Plus, you'll get free weekly videos before anybody else gets them. This is Peter Feza reminding you to conquer any fear and make your dreams happen now.